And it's going to be hard for a company to actually commit to finding you a lifelong partner, finding you a stable relationship, finding you that person when they also benefit from you being a user. What's up, YouTube? It's tinysey, and I'm back with another YouTube video. Today I'm going to be talking about how millennials, Gen Z, they are over the dating apps. They're over the toxic dating app culture. And what brought this up in my mind was Bumble. They recently are going through a rebrand, and they released some very distasteful billboards that people are not happy with.
Let's talk about the new Bumble ad campaign and these billboards that went up recently. A vow of celibacy is not the answer. You know full well a vow of celibacy is not the answer. Thou shalt not give up on dating to become a nun. Bumble has been teasing a rebrand for a while, saying that dating needs a wake-up call. They've been using historic images of women who are exhausted from the dating scene, and then this is what they rolled out. What we know about this, number one, is women have raised their standards and it's working. These ads are so desperate. They're giving major pick-me energy and major where's my hug energy.
And it really made me think of how dating apps are just on a downward spiral. People were just not happy with it. It's out of touch. It's not the answer that millennials and Gen Z are looking for with the crisis with dating, the problems with loneliness. This is not the answer. And so let's talk about it in today's video. First, we have to get into how did all of this even begin in the first place? Well, it all started with matchmaking and ancient societies, the Aztecs, Greece, Japan, China, you name it. You name it! One of these ancient societies had matchmaking services. And essentially, the elders did not believe that young people were capable of making these sorts of decisions, of finding their life partner. And so usually an elder woman would pair couples together. And the idea of a matchmaker persisted. And instead of it being a wise woman in the community, it was a professional that you went to in order to have them match you with someone probably in the area or close in distance. That's kind of how matchmaking services work. And after matchmaking, we enter the era of online matchmaking with Match.com, which was created in 1995. They were the first online dating platform to exist. And after that, we got many more like Christian Mingle. We had some sugar baby site, you name it. It exists. Gen X was really the generation that used these online dating platforms, and maybe a few of the older millennials. And then came Tinder in 2012. And this was revolutionary because it was an application on your phone. And while Match.com also transitioned to app, wasn't necessarily made for a phone application. And so Tinder blew all the competition away with their revolutionary application. Their mission was to empower, inspire real connections by making meeting easy and fun for every new generation of singles, and to increase romantic connectivity around the world. I do think that they achieved their mission in making dating a lot easier. Millennials, Gen Z, they really are the generation that are using dating apps. A lot of people have found success through dating applications, and it's become a very popular way for people to meet and date and eventually get married. Then Bumble got created in 2014. But there was a difference with Bumble. They weren't like the rest. They were different, okay? They were different. Bumble was founded by Whitney Wolfe Herd, and she was a co-founder of Tinder back in the day. She eventually left the company, and she decided to make this application, which was essentially created to empower women. Specifically, she stated, "When I founded Bumble, it was because I saw a problem I wanted to help solve. It was 2014, but so many of the smart, wonderful women in my life were still waiting around for men to ask them out, to take their numbers, or to start up a conversation on a dating app. For all the advances women had been making in workplaces and corridors of power, the gender dynamic of dating and romance still seemed so outdated. I thought, what if I could flip that on its head? What if women made the first move and sent the first message?" In an interview with Time magazine, she also talks about how she's often painted as a woman seeking vengeance after men tried to bury her. A lot of the coverage focuses on her experience years ago as a co-founder at the dating app Tinder, where she was allegedly harassed by an executive who was also her boyfriend. Besides her history of toxic relationships, the misogyny of tech is exactly why Bumble exists. In an online dating landscape where women, and particularly women of color, are routinely bullied and harassed, she set out to build the closest thing to a safe space for digital romance. She says, honestly, my ambition comes from abusive relationships. I've never had this healthy male relationship until I created it. I engineered an ecosystem of healthy male relationships in my life. And so another element of the reason she created Bumble was to address some of the harassment that women face in the modern dating world. So how does it work? Similar to Tinder, you can swipe left or right on people that you find attractive. Ooh. So similar to Tinder, you swipe left or right on people that you see on your feed. And if you guys both like each other, you get a match. And once you have this match, the difference between Bumble and other applications is that the women have to make the first move. They have 24 hours to send the guy a message. And then from there, the guy also has 24 hours. And then you just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. This was supposed to solve the issue of harassment. To me, it wasn't solving anything. It was just a burden. But I will say that the people were better on Bumble. But eventually, Bumble also diversified. They have Bumble BFF, they have Bumble Biz. And on these specific parts of their platform, either person can initiate the conversation. It's not just the women. And so this was Bumble's revolutionary beginning, and they were pretty popular. From 2018 to 2019, dating apps were really at a height. Everyone was using them, and I feel like they were actually innovative in solving a lot of the problems that Gen Z, millennials, that they had. It was a lot easier to make connections. Some people are shy. Some people don't know where to meet people. The whole third space issue. And also, if you don't go to college or you're done with college, it's hard to meet new people after you're in that controlled environment. And so I think dating apps really were a good fix for a lot of people. But recent years, dating apps have been on a downward spiral. The stocks are dropping. And even if we look at Bumble, their shares are down 80% from when they first went public in 2021. And so we are just seeing a downward trend. They are not as profitable. So Bumble sees this and they go, we need a rebrand. We need to rethink our strategy because clearly something's going on. First commercial that they put out showed a woman that was swearing off dating and going to a convent to become a nun. And while she's at this convent, she sees a gardener that's looking nice and she can't help but oogle at the gardener. And so they give her a phone with Bumble on it and she starts swiping, and eventually she decides, the nun life isn't for me. I'm leaving. I'm out of here. My hormones have got the best of me. I can't do it. And people saw this and they didn't really get it. They're like, okay, something's going on. They're about to do something revolutionary. They're about to do something really different, but they weren't quite sure what. What does Bumble have up its sleeve? After that, they decided to roll out the billboards. It said, you know full well, a vow of celibacy is not the answer, and thou shalt not give up on dating and become a nun. It was very out of touch. People were able to understand they were able to give context to what that video was trying to convey. It fell flat and it really didn't resonate with Gen Zs, millennials, or anyone that uses dating apps. I think the problem is they don't understand the issue at hand. Well, the first thing to address is just the problems with dating apps. There's so much research that could have been done, but the first place is, what problems are millennials, Gen Z, probably their main demographic? What problems are they having? Looking into this, quickly I found that Match Group, the owner of Hinge, Tinder, and The League, are being sued for predatory business practices. They're essentially saying that this company's dating apps, they're not actually being designed for people to find love, but rather they're just trying to empty people's pockets and just get money at any area and place and way that they can. The predatory business model that they're promoting is the gamification of a lot of these applications. They're turning the search for love, they're turning dating into something close to gambling. And a lot of these apps, the way that they're designed, they just make people addicted to swiping and never really getting off the app, never really feeling committed to finding someone to be with. They're also complaining about the rose jail, and this is specific to Hinge. And this is an area where you need to give somebody a rose in order to begin talking to them. But the thing is, you only get one rose a week. And if you want more roses, you have to pay.
Oh! Lucky me!
And so this is another way that they prey on customers in order to give them more money to access people that are more attractive. The application is identifying people that are getting a lot of likes, and they decide, okay, these are people that need to be in the rose jail because these are people that might get customers to pay more money in order to send them roses. And so it's really unfair to both the users trying to look for a mate, but also the people that are behind the rose jail, because now they're getting less likes. They think nobody likes them. They probably don't even know they're in rose jail unless all they get are roses. And in that case, they probably do know they're in rose jail. But it's just sucky for both people, and all it does is promote people to buy more roses and then also stay on the app for even longer. Another one is employing psychologically manipulative features to ensure they remain on the app perpetually as paying subscribers. And they're arguing that Match Group is engaging in negligence and violating customer protection laws. Just these countless number of features and ways that they force the user to stay on the app longer, limiting how many swipes, limiting how many likes, all these sorts of things that just don't really make sense if the goal is find someone, delete the app, right? Like, how are they helping that goal with all of these paywalls? And this leads to dating app fatigue. So this is another major issue, a major topic of discussion when it comes to these dating apps. People on these apps are just experiencing so much burnout.
Did you know that Tinder turned 10 this weekend? That's right, it's been around for 10 full years. And this New York Times article is all about how for many of us, it has literally been a full decade of being on the dating apps. What has that done to us? So they featured this woman, Abby, 28, been on the dating apps for 8 years. OkCupid, Bumble, Tinder, eHarmony, da-da-da-da-da. But really, she is just over it all. The swiping, the monotonous getting to know you conversations, the self-doubt that creeps in when one of her matches fizzles. Not a single long-term relationship has blossomed from her efforts. This is so common. So she's just tired. We're just tired, right? We're tired of being on these apps. We're burnt out. And then there's this aspect. 37% of online daters said that someone continued to contact them after they said they weren't interested, and 35% have received unwanted sexually explicit texts or images. And here's where we're at. An April survey of 500 18 to 54-year-olds concluded that nearly 80% of those people have experienced emotional burnout or fatigue with online dating. In 2016, Match included a question about fatigue in their survey, and about half of respondents said they were burnt out with their dating life. After a decade of fruitless searching, I started to ask myself, what has all that time, all that effort, all that money actually given me? This was a super interesting point. Imagine anticipating receiving something good for years, existing in that state of any day now for an extremely extended period of time is incredibly unhealthy. So what do? We can get off the apps, right? And many of us do that, delete all of them, get back on in a month kind of thing. But for some people, that's not going to work, or that's not enough. So if you stay on the app, what we want to do is not just binge endlessly, right? People binge, and this is what exhausts them. Dr. Fisher, who is Chief Science Officer at Match and is also a researcher, recommends that app users stop scrolling and talking to other matches once they found 9 people that they feel some level of connection with, and then dedicate their time just to those 9 people. She points to research suggesting that people's short-term memory systems cannot handle more than 5 to 9 stimuli at once. Dr. Fisher also believes that it can help to meet matches virtually before deciding whether it's even worth the time to meet in real life.
So in an online survey of 1,000 Americans who have used a dating app within the past year, which was commissioned by Forbes Health and conducted by the research company OnePoll, they found that women feel more burnt out than men, with 80% reporting feeling some level of burnout compared to 74% of males. Dr. Span, somebody that worked on this research project, his speculation is that women lead with an emotional connection, whereas men lead with a physical connection. The more that women are pouring their emotions out, trying to actually build a connection, get to know somebody, and if that ends in them getting ghosted, it not working out, etc., this is going to weigh heavier on their heart, especially if they got attached. Whereas if a guy was more so in it for the physical, and it didn't work out, it's his speculations that it doesn't hurt them as much. And that goes into the next reason why people aren't really happy with dating apps. It's hard to find a serious connection on this app because men and women are sometimes not on there for the same reasons. According to Statista.com, 59% of women use dating applications to find serious relationships in comparison to 50% of men that are using dating apps for serious relationships. I also found that 36% of men use dating apps for sexual relationships in comparison to 14% of women. And this leads to it being hard to find a serious relationship. And especially when apps like Bumble put certain advanced filters behind a paywall. And specifically the filter, what are they seeking in a relationship, is behind a paywall. It leads to people being tricked and them putting more time into a relationship than they probably need. And that goes into the last point. It's a cash grab. Like half of it is a cash grab. Half of it, they're just trying to find a way to get your money. And a lot of these applications have tiers. And within these tiers, you can access more features. And some of these features just feel essential. Like I said, like, what are you looking for? Religion, height, race, just some things that you would assume are just naturally given to you. And honestly, some of the things that I found are behind a paywall weren't behind a paywall when I was on these apps. So it's getting worse and worse. So I think that's like the first step that Bumble could have looked into. They could have actually tried to test the temperature and what millennials and what Gen Z are actually feeling. But I don't think they did that at all because this rebrand doesn't really make sense and it does not address any of those issues that were just mentioned. We didn't even discuss what those commercials and billboards were trying to promote. So essentially, they roll out the feature opening move. And so with opening move, women have more choice in how they make the first move. They can either select a prompt or write their own. And so you could still write your prompt if you want, but also you can take a little bit of help. They could have thought of better branding, better marketing for a feature like this. So I think they were going for controversy marketing and it totally failed. Like, people are deleting the app. People are blocking them.
So apparently, Bumble has issued an apology, and in it, they're claiming to get rid of all billboards associated with celibacy. And as cute of an attempt as this is for y'all, I don't give a damn. Continue to boycott Bumble. Yeah, this Bumble fumble is so massive. And it's one of those things that once you see, you just cannot unsee it. And I personally cannot unsee that Bumble really got on these billboards and told women, y'all are putting y'all's coochies on ice a little bit too much and it's costing us money. If y'all don't get outside and bust it wide for Clyde and throw it back for Jack and stop playing. And I can't unsee that. And if that's how you feel about women and their advocacy for their bodies in public, I can only imagine how you feel about us behind closed doors. So yeah, this was cute, but the Bumble boycott is still on. Delete the app today. Thank you.
What Bumble doesn't realize, I think Bumble does realize it, but the people are the main profit of dating applications. If you don't have thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of people on this dating app, it's just not going to be successful. If there's only 500 people on the app, it's just not going to do as well. So I think with the stocks going down, with them seeing all these movements of people moving away from apps, they are just trying to go for something controversial and they're targeting the women. They didn't do their research on why women are even walking away from these apps in the first place. And a lot of women are on a movement to decenter men from their lives. If you've heard, there's the 4B movement where they're just walking away from them completely. There's gender wars that's going on. And people say that, it's just online. It's just chronically online, people seeing this. But then why are dating app stocks going down so much? Like, it's actually affecting their pockets. And so I don't think it's just something that's online. This is a real conversation that's happening. It's a movement that's happening. Women are healing. Women are deciding how to have healthy relationships with men. And if they decided that dating apps aren't the best solution, then I think that's fine. And I think that's something the companies are going to have to deal with. It doesn't mean that dating's off the table. It might mean that some women are going to be celibate. Traditionally, this is something that women do till they're married, but some women might just do it till they're in a serious relationship, till they're healed, till they're mentally ready. It's just a tool that women and men are able to use. Women are having a movement that's in the public eye. It's not hidden. We know that it's happening, and you can easily find out why if you do your research. And so them targeting women without doing that research really doesn't make sense. And them saying you don't have to be a nun, you don't have to be celibate. Well, what's the alternative? The alternative is just going back to Bumble, going back to the app, and they didn't fix anything, then I don't get it. Like, it just makes absolutely no sense. There's so many things that they actually could have done, like listening to the complaints by taking religion, taking height, taking what are you looking for out of the paywall, making it more safe, making the interactions safe, putting in safeguards essentially onto your application. There's just so many things you could think of that they could have done to address the real issues that women are having. But instead of doing that, they just said, okay, well, we made it a little bit easier by this opening prompt thing, which doesn't address any of the reasons why people are walking away from these apps in the first place. They're not reading the room at all, and I think it reveals their intentions, which is just to get you back on the app, get eyes back on their company, do anything. It's a desperate attempt at a cash grab because their stocks are going down and they're probably on the brink of extinction. Clearly, there's a movement where people are moving away from these dating apps, and it's clear from the data. I think what that billboard and advertisement rebrand really did was solidify the fact that we need another method, because they aren't actually trying to solve any of the problems that millennials, Gen Z, and their customers are saying. They're not actually trying to address any of these issues. And it's going to be hard for a company to actually commit to finding you a lifelong partner, finding you a stable relationship, finding you that person when they also benefit from you being a user. They have no motivation to do better. How can we use dating apps? Right now, I know that dating apps are the best solution. I'm not going to lie. I think it's the best solution to meet people. You're not going to have as much access to people looking for relationships than on a dating app. But if you are going to go on the app, be very intentional about why you're there and how you are going to use the application. But also do your research before you use an application. I know a lot of these applications have some crazy reputations, like Tinder. We already know it's just like go there for a hookup. Bumble, low-key go there for a hookup. Very much do your research. And same thing with Hinge. Like, although it was the saving grace, and I think it was a very good application, Hinge worked for me. But I hear nowadays that Hinge is no longer what it used to be, and they are slowly falling in their predecessors' ways by putting things behind a paywall and just ruining things. And so there is yet to be a solution, but if you are going to pick one of the apps, do your research first. And lastly, limit your time swiping, because this gamification, this gambling-like features, they really will have you there for hours and hours. They will have you clung to your phone, waiting for that message, waiting until you can get back on the app. And I just feel like you have to limit your time on the app, limit your swiping on the app, but put some boundaries around it, because I think that's what's leading to the burnout and people generally just giving up on dating apps. But then also we might have to go back to a time where we meet people in person, where we use a matchmaker, to where we start to go back to some of those traditional ways. It's funny how history repeats itself, but I honestly don't think there was a problem with matchmaking. I think people just wanted more access to people. And I think we're learning that more access doesn't necessarily mean that your process is any easier. We also know it as humans that we get overwhelmed when we're presented with too many options. And so sometimes it is better when someone's just doing the job for you, and you might end up paying less money than you would on one of these apps, because some of these people, they'll end up spending hundreds of dollars on these dating applications. I think it's time to consider these more traditional ways of meeting people, because dating apps are losing their original ethos. They're losing the plot. That's when you replace them. That's when you find a new way to go about it, because people do want to date, people do want to find these relationships and get married and all of that. But if there is no way of doing that, then that's when people just turn away. That's when people just give up. So I really wonder what everyone else is doing for dating. Like, what's it like out in the dating landscape? I know that it's grim. I know that people aren't happy, but what are people doing? Maybe it will help others find a new method. Comment it down below. That's all I have for you guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.